Hey, I'm Jonny, I'm one of the baristas here at Foodstory, and today I'm going to show you how to make a Chemex. We're going to be using Sundlaug's Ethiopian Adado Yirgacheffe. It's a really clean, sweet coffee that has good notes of blueberry and strawberry that come through it, and we use that in the cafe. So you want to begin with rinsing your Chemex out. The reason we do that is twofold. Partly, it's going to take away any kind of papery taste that you might get from the filter paper itself, but secondly, it's going to preheat your vessel. So once that's gone through, you can actually dispose of the water into the cup, meaning you're going to have a nice warm cup to begin with when you have your coffee. The recipe that we follow in the cafe is 25 grams of medium coarse ground coffee and 350 milliliters of water. I like to put like a wee divot into the coffee just so when we begin it's going to hold that all in there nicely. And before you start everything, you want to tare your scale so you're starting off as neutral. Right, now we can actually make the coffee. So to begin with, you just want to pour a bit in. Ideally, double the weight of the coffee, so 50 milliliters of water is what you're going to want in there. And you're going to let that sit in there in a process which we call blooming. Essentially, that's like a pre-infusion that's going to release the gases in the coffee and leave you with a much more flavorful cup. Depending on the freshness of the coffee you're drinking, that's going to be a period between 30 seconds and even 45 seconds, just to kind of let that kind of soak through. And once we've done that, we can begin the pour. Now the way we pour is we want to have a slow and even pouring of just like wee concentric circles, probably about the size of a 10p coin, and in like a pulse motion, so you're not pouring the whole way through, you can stop and start. You don't want to fill the whole headspace of the Chemex. You want to maybe go 2/3, let it drop down a bit, and then keep adding to it. And ideally this whole process should be taking us maybe 3.5 minutes to 4.5 minutes, depending on the type of coffee you're using. And you just want to keep topping that up. Never let the water run down the edge, otherwise it's just going to rush through too quickly. For those of you who've maybe never tried Chemex, it's going to be different than like an Americano or even like a diner style filter. The paper actually kind of traps any of those notes of bitterness, so you end up with a really refreshing cup, and it almost becomes closer to like a wine drinking or tea drinking experience. So we're coming in at 2 minutes now. Ideally by about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you want to use up the contents of your hot water in the kettle, and that way you can let the water just drain out towards the final minute. Great. So that's there at 2 minutes 30 seconds, and the kettle's used up, and we're just going to let that drain through. The reason that we're so precise with the weights and the measurements of the times is that you can ensure a perfect cup of coffee that way. If you're just pouring randomly, you've got no idea how that's going to work. So when we stick to our recipe, we know that's going to produce a good cup. Now that's going to vary from coffee to coffee, but you can have a play around with it and kind of base it on this recipe, and that will work at home, it will work in a cafe, and you'll be getting those kind of perfect flavors balancing through. Now the way that we know when this coffee is finished brewing is that this pour is going to turn to a drip, and that's the bed of coffee is going to actually be dried out, and we know that it's kind of brewed for the perfect amount of time there and it's ready to drink. And we're coming up to almost 3.5 minutes. At this stage you can probably dispose of the hot water that's in your cup. And you want to be checking both from the top of the coffee to see the dryness of the bed, and also the bottom to see when it's turned from a pour to a drip. Great. And that's us perfectly at 4 minutes and it started dripping. So dispose of your filter paper. Take that off the scale and give it a swirl just to make sure everything's coming through. And the next stage is going to sound slightly counterintuitive, but what you want to do is when you pour into your cup, you're not going to want to drink that immediately. You want to leave that for about 20 to 30 seconds, because actually as it loses some of its heat, the flavour is going to come through much nicer. And it's going to store its heat in here a little bit better than it's going to store its heat in here. And anyway, that's how we make a Chemex Foodstory. Try that at home, give us feedback, and hopefully enjoy it.